I introduce again myself. My name is Prawitra Talib. It is a wonderful and precious chance for me as a head of Magister Program Police Science Study, Postgraduate School, Universitas Airlangga, to be your moderator in this public lecture on Saturday, 10 April 2001. Already join us today our distinguished speaker, Assistant Professor Dr. Swikar Lama from Sardar Patel University of Police Security and Criminal Justice, Jodhpur, India. First of all, let's say thanks to Allah, God Almighty, who has been giving us guidance, happiness, healthy, and mercy, so we can attend and participate in this event without any obstacle. In this beautiful day, I would like to say welcome, Professor Dr. Swikar Lama. How do you do? Yeah. And I would like to say welcome to all lecturers, students, and guests, and of course, all my beloved participants, especially from Magister Police Science Study, Postgraduate School Universitas Airlangga, and participant from the Indonesia Police Force, and all viewers in YouTube Live and Instagram Live. On this special Saturday, for the next hour, Professor Swikar Lama will give a public lecture about smart policing with special reference to predictive policing. This public lecture will be divided into two sessions. First is lecturing from the Professor Swikar Lama, and the second session is question and answer. If during lecturing, in any participant there is any question, please write your question in the column chat. I will, in the question and answer session, I will choose the question to be answered by the Dr. Swikar Lama. Okay. Well, to take advantage of the time, for the next hour, let's start this lecturing from the Professor Dr. Swikar Lama. Please, the time is yours.
Thank you. Hello, is the screen visible?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. Oh, okay. Selamat siang.
Selamat siang.
Okay, so today I will be speaking on smart policing with special reference to predictive policing. So, but at the onset, I would like to inform that I'm not an expert in this field. I'm exploring this field, and I'm in contact with some of the IT experts because this field has really interested me. And right now, this is one of my area of interest. So I'm exploring more and more about this, and I'm still in the process of learning more and gaining knowledge. So yeah, if some kinds of questions are there, I'm happy to answer it. So first of all, I will start with smart policing. Smart policing is a strategic approach which is used by police, and it brings more science, especially analysis, technology, and evidence-based practices in the approach of policing. And basically, there's a smart policing initiative which is used in USA, and it improves analysis, performance measurement, evaluation research, and efficiency, and also encourages innovation through this kind of policing. So there are 5 key components of smart policing. One is performance measurement and research partnerships. Then we have outreach and collaboration with community, with NGOs, with other things, and managing organizational change. So if there is any organizational change within the organization, they will help the police officers to accept, to go through that change and all the process which is involved in an organizational change. And then we have strategic targeting. And the 5th one, which is related to predictive policing, is making better use of intelligence and other data and information systems. So these are the 5 key components of smart policing. Now, this is in the context of USA. Now, when I talk about in Indian context, this was the definition, or this was the full form which was given by our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. He defined smart policing by stating that S stands for strict but sensitive, M stands for modern and mobile, A stands for alert and accountable, R stands for reliable and responsive, and T stands for techno-savvy and trend. And here again, the predictive policing is more related with the last part, which is T for techno-savvy and trained. So now we are talking about smart cities. So especially in a smart cities where everything is going to be digitalized and other things are going to happen, which is slowly happening in some metropolitan cities. So there is a smart technology, smart e-governance, smart education. So we also need to incorporate smart policing because law enforcement is one of the most important aspects in administration. So S stands for strict and sensitive. So this means that police needs to be strict to enforce rules of the law, but at the same time they should be sensitive to the social sentiments of the general public. For example, one certain thing happened, which is really shameful. Even in India, it happened that a lady was gang raped by the friends of her husband, and when she went to the police station, this is what was asked to her: that with whom did you enjoy the most? So if this is the kind of question, I don't think so the police is going to be termed as sensitive or seen as sensitive. So they need to be strict, but at the same time, they need to be sensitive to victims. M stands for modern and mobile. So police needs to increase its outreach to the community, to the other stakeholders, and needs to increase their efficiency by including newer technologies and mobile like means of mobility, especially now with drones and other kinds of technology. There are many other technologies which can be included. Like you can see in this picture, so many equipments are being used, and these can help in the efficiency of the police. Then alert and accountable, with especially with cases of terrorism and other things, the police needs to be more and more alert, and they also need to be accountable. So intelligence network and other kinds of aspect will help them become more alert, and the smart police have to be accountable to the citizens also. Now, as of now, the police is only accountable to the government, to the politicians, but somehow the police needs to be accountable to the citizens as well. And R stands for reliable and responsive. So when a police needs to be more responsive, they need to take more information from various mediums like phone calls, emails, social media, information technology devices, panic buttons, and this will definitely help the police to become more responsive, and also then people will see them as more reliable. Now, the last point is techno savvy and trained. So, in this particular thing, the police needs to utilize modern information technology applications, which can actually help the police to increase the intelligence network. And also, these police needs to be trained enough to analyze and make use of this information. If they are not trained, it will be of no use, even if sophisticated IT applications are used and they are not trained to understand that or to use that, it will be of no use. So now I move on to the main aspect, predictive policing. As you can see in this picture, the police is trying to find out the prediction through a crystal ball, but it is not that simple, or it is not so mystical as this. Obviously, the police does not use a crystal ball to predict crimes, and they in fact use these kind of devices. They use this kind of devices where there are maps, there are analysis, where there are a lot of data, lots and lots of data, which can be used to predict the crimes. So let me just define in short what is predictive policing. Predictive policing is the application of analytical techniques, particularly quantitative techniques, to identify likely targets for police intervention and prevent crime, or also to solve past crimes by making statistical predictions. So this is what is, and they use the help of statistical and geospatial information to find this. Now, why do we think that crime is predictable? Because a lot of theories, especially situational crime theories, talk about that criminals tend to operate in their comfort zone. Obviously, they do not travel 500 kilometers, 100, in fact, 200 kilometers. It's rare that you will see them traveling such long distances to commit crime. So they generally tend to operate in the comfort zone, be it the distance, be it the modus operandi. They will use the same kind of techniques, or they will use the same kind of modus operandi to commit crime. So one is that. The other is that we all know about human behavior, and criminals commit crime because of similar reasons or because of similar motives. It may be revenge, it may be love, it may be money, it may be something else, but there are certain motives which lead criminals to commit crime. So that is why crime is predictable. Like this person, Professor Jeff Brantingham, is a very known person in this field, and he has talked about that most people feel that humans are too complex and too random, and we cannot do maths with humans. But humans are not as random as we think. Crime is just a physical process, and it explains how offenders move, how they mix with their victims, and you can understand an incredible amount of the behavior of criminals if we go through the data. So, as I already told you, that criminals and victims follow common life patterns. Obviously, criminals are not aliens; they are also human beings in the society, and they follow the same kind of patterns like victims and other people. So, we just need to tap in those patterns, those areas where we can identify the criminals. Like there have been many situational crime theories which talk about daily activities, routine space, urban structure, and people and groups. These are some of the factors which affect crime and the kind of behavior of criminals. For example, in NCR, National Capital Region, or in Delhi, near Delhi, a lot of crimes were happening with call center employees, especially girls, because at that time many of these other people, the people who used to do other occupation like taxi drivers and all, they would intermingle with these kind of the people, because they were also roaming around at nights, and these call center employees were also going to their homes and all, and so in between such kind of sexual offenses, other crimes used to happen. So obviously now the police commissionerate and the call center organizations, they got in tandem with each other, and it was decided that the girls would be protected by, they would be left right at the doorstep of their homes to avoid such kind of crimes. So it depends a lot upon the daily activities and routine space of both the victims and the offenders. Okay, and now what is the objective of predictive policing? So predictive policing or predictive methods allow police to work more proactively with limited resources. I do not know about Indonesia, but in India, the population is too high and the number of policemen is quite low as compared to the population. The ratio is very, very low. So obviously with limited resources, be it manpower, be it money, because the government does not allocate much of its fund to the police. It's a minuscule amount which should be, which is given to them, which is much less than what is supposed to be given to the police. So the objective of these predictive methods is to develop effective strategies to make investigation more effective. Now, as you can see, I'll just give you an example. In Manchester, the police department used this kind of predictive analysis. And obviously, they started with a small area where there was population was 100 and it was within 35 square miles, and tried to understand where incidents occurred and what were the different kinds of crimes which were happening in that area. And they used a software, a data mining software, which was known as SPSS Modeler, and they implemented this to find out the hotspots, and they used other predictive models, and crime analysts were deployed, they were employed to find out. And the response or the effectiveness of this kind of mechanism record the crime reduction reduced by 28% within just 5 weeks of this process, and 60% crime prediction was recorded within a 500-foot radius of where the crime was forecasted to occur. So this happened. It was a huge success. And then later it was implemented at a larger level, and then um, 237 sworn officers were included in this, and crime prevention through better understanding the drivers of the incident, and hands-on mentorship was given to all the crime analysts about the police department, about police thing. And these Manchester Police Department were equipped with the crime analysts, and they recorded crime reduction of 24% in robberies, 13% for burglaries, and 34% for thefts within just 10 weeks of this program or project starting. Okay, so you can see this is the same thing. It was almost 1.1 million citizens are there in the Manchester, New Hampshire, and they needed a smarter way to decide where these 237 officers should patrol. And by using predictive policing, they deployed a more effective kind of patrolling out there, and the result was reduction in various kinds of crimes, especially property crimes. So obviously, as I told, predictive policing makes policing more effective as compared to traditional policing, and it focuses on variables like places, people, groups, and incidents. And this helps in analyzing demographic trends, parole populations, and this actually helps in preventing crimes. So I'll just skip this. So now, what are the different methods, or what is the taxonomy of predictive methods? I would like to focus on this, that there are different methods or there are different kinds of predictions which predictive policing uses. First of all, it is divided into four broad categories. The first category is methods for predicting crimes. So these kind of methods are used to forecast places and times where there is increased risk of crime. The second one is methods for predicting offenders, that who are the individuals who are more at risk of offending in future. So this is the method for predicting offenders. The third one is methods for predicting perpetrators' identities. So we don't exactly predict who are going to commit the crimes, but the kind of personalities or the kind of people who are going more likely to commit crimes is methods for predicting perpetrators' identities. And then methods for predicting victims. So who are the people who are more likely to become victims? We identify the victims through this kind of prediction method. So these are the four categories. So I'll just like to say that many people criticize predictive policing. They say that it is old wine bottled into a new bottle or new packaging. But there are certain differences between crime analysis and predictive policing or predictive analytics. As you can see out here, when it is used for when it is used for predicting crimes, crime analysis only uses certain techniques like crime mapping, basic regression models, graphing, mapping, and all that. But in predictive analysis, our analytics, they use historical crime data, call records, then they use geographic features, but at the same time, they use data analytics or very advanced kind of analytics like advanced hotspot identification, risk terrain analysis, regression, classification, clustering models, near repeat modeling, spatiotemporal analysis, and risk terrain analysis. Similarly, when it is used to predict offenders, they use different kinds of models like near repeat modeling, regression, and classification. And they use all these things to find out who could be the offenders or what kind of people can be the offenders. Especially again for predicting perpetrators' identities, they again use computer assisted queries, statistical modeling, geographical profiling, analysis, and tools, and computer assisted queries to find whether these crimes are a part of a series, where the perpetrator is most likely to live, or where is their home, where is that home of the perpetrator. And they use different kinds of sensor informations through GPS tracking, license plate readers, and all this to find out the perpetrators' identities. And then methods for predicting victims of crimes. So in this also, again, they use different kinds of data analysis techniques and data mining techniques. And they use advanced crime mapping tools. They use computer assisted database to identify people who are at risk of different crimes, like including domestic violence, risk for victimization, and all these things, and also risky locations where the people can be victimized. So all these things are used by predictive analysis. So, but at the same time, the crime analysts or the data analysts can do only their part of the job, because predictions is only half of the process. The other half has to be carried out by the police officers. They have to carry out interventions. They can't just depend on the data analysis. They will only give you the analysis and they will let you know what can help to reduce the crime, but the action has to be taken by the police officers. So let me go into the process. What is the process of prediction-led policing and prevention methods? Obviously, the first two steps are collecting and analyzing crime data, incident data, offender data to produce predictions. But the third step, which is more got to do with the police officers, is police operations. That is where action comes in. So this is the cyclic process where it starts with data collection and then collating the data, fusing the data and analyzing the data, and then predicting what can happen next. and then the police comes into the picture, the police operations goes on, and then they have to assess whether the action has brought any result or not, and if not, again they have to intervene. And we can't just assume that if the police takes action, they will not there will be no changes in the behavior of the criminal. Obviously the criminals are also smart, and they are also going to make some other changes in their decision, the changes in their targets, and it's going to happen. So again, in that, the altered environment will lead to again different kind of data, and again the data needs to be collected and again analyzed, and this cycle will go on and on. So now we move on to the different steps one by one. So data collection is where it is very important, where technology is going to come in handy. Earlier, it was just paperwork. The first information reports used to be written on the paper and hard copies and all. Now it's going to be through the information technology. Like in India also, we have implemented the CCTNS, Criminal Tracking and Network System, where everything like existing registers, reports, case files, images and pictures, first information reports, charge sheets, criminals data, everything is going to be included in the database. So that is one example of it. Similarly, New York Police Department has also started with a domain awareness system where they integrate numerous data sources within the department and makes this information available to their police officers. So in this, like just to give you an example, like they have 2 billion readings from license plates attached with photos for each case, 100 million summons, 54 million 911 calls, 15 million complaints, 12 million detective reports, 11 million arrests, 2 million warrants, and 30 days of video. So you can imagine the amount of database which is being used. Then we move on to data analysis, wherein the crime analysts or data analysts come into the picture. They have to analyze the huge amount of data by using different techniques like data mining, collation, and all that. And it could include geospatial data also. So we include all these kids and try to find out patterns. It could be seasonal patterns, it could be weekly patterns, it could be daily patterns. That is what the data analysts try to find out. So first of all, which is very common even in crime analysis, is hotspot analysis. Hotspot analysis is used to predict where crimes are going to happen and where there are more number of crimes, and in future also where crimes are going to happen. Okay. So just to give you an example, the Sacramento Police Department in US used hotspot analysis way back in 2011, and they started patrolling those hotspot areas, and almost the crimes were reduced by one fourth. A quarter of these crimes were reduced. And next technique is data mining, where a lot of data is there. Then the important data, the useful data, is taken out from that data. So that is known as data mining. So in UK, Derbyshire, they again use this kind of data mining, where specialized softwares were used to find out different kinds of data, and then maps were made on the basis of these data, and this also resulted in the reduction of crimes. Technique is regression. So regression tries to find out the relationships between independent variables and certain variables. For example, like unemployment, or it could be drug addiction and all that. So they will try to find out the independent variables and the certain variables like crimes, property crimes, and all that. For example, in Pittsburgh, the police used certain kinds of indicators to find out what can lead to violent offenses and all that. And they actually, by using 93, they did the study on 93 significant violent crime areas, and they were studied, and 19 areas were successfully predicted to almost 100% by using these kind of indicators and all that. Then we have classification, and in this they use different kinds of algorithms to find out similar patterns in the data and determine what can be classified as the same kind of data. Now the next is risk terrain analysis. Out here, they, apart from geographical features like hills and other things, also they use other factors also, like social factors in that particular area, physical factors or geographical areas, behavioral factors, and taking into consideration all these factors, they try to predict which areas are going to be more likely to be affected by crime. So in this, the basically the Morris County department or the police used 5 inputs in the model. They used data of past burglaries, the data of address of individuals who are arrested for property crimes, proximity to the highways, the geographic concentration of young men in those areas, and the location of apartment complexes and hotels. By using all this data and fusing all this data and trying to find out, they could actually reduce the crimes, violent crimes and property crimes. And then the next is repeat method, near repeat methods. In this, they actually try to find out, because crimes occur almost at the same distance where the crimes have occurred previously, or it occurs at nearly at the same time where other crimes have occurred in the past. So they, by using both these things, near repeat modeling assumes that crimes are more likely to occur in the same proximity or in the same time zones, and they use all this data to predict those areas where crimes will occur in future. So Santa Cruz Police Department again used this, and they actually were successful in reducing burglaries. Next is spatio-temporal analysis. This technique uses environmental and temporal features, and they try to find out the hot kind of hot zones or hot spots, and then they actually use all this, both the combining both the spatial and the temporal data they use to predict the crimes, including the timing of the crimes. Everything factors will be considered, like timings of crime, weather, distance from highways, and all these things. Now the step 5, so step 3, sorry, is police operations, which is which is most important for police officers. Even the best analysis, even if you're given the best analysts of the world, but if you do not do anything, if you do not take action, it is not going to reduce the crime. So apart from increasing the attention of patrolling in those hotspot areas, visiting those areas, other interventions have to also be done to reduce the crime. So for example, if a location is a hub of crime and there are crimes happening, it is also likely that when you start doing patrolling, those criminals will move to another place. That is known as displacement in crime analysis and criminology. So that can happen. So again, you might have to again collect data for the new hotspot. So that can also happen. And appropriate analysis will help to reduce the crime rate, but it also be percolated in the action of the police. So for example, the police has to increase their presence in those hotspots, they have to increase the patrolling, they have to go on periodic visits, they have to increase the surveillance in those areas. Unless until this is done, it will be of no use. So that is very important. So what are the kind of interventions which the police or the forces, law enforcement agencies can do? They can do generic interventions. For example, increasing more allocation at those places which need attention, like hotspots. There can be more patrolling, there can be more surveillance, CCTVs and all that. So there's a generic interventions. The next is crime specific intervention. For example, in that locality, what are the kind of crimes which are happening? For example, if there is a crime which is specific to elderly people. For example, this happened in Mumbai. There was so much of crimes happening on elderly people. So the police specifically started visiting those homes which have elderly people, so who live alone. So they started focusing on those areas where this can be happen. Then problem specific interventions, for example, identifying population, locations, person specific programs. For example, if you notice that most of the criminals are coming from a particular area, not to stereotype. For example, if you find that those people are from the slum areas or a particular area. For example, it happened in Delhi. There was a mall which was known as Select City Mall, which was constructed, and it started out there, and just in opposite to that mall there was a slum area. So obviously the human behavior started happening. The human behavior saw that these people were, the rich people were buying very branded clothes, moving in new cars, good cars. And so the crimes like chain snatching, then thefts and all these things, shop stealing, shoplifting and all started happening out there. So if you want to intervene out there, then you should focus on those people, try to get in touch with NGOs, provide them vocational training and all those things. So it could be problem specific interventions as well. Now, there are various challenges of predictive policing. It's not as easy as it seems, because you have to manage a large, huge data set. There are lots and lots of data which needs to be managed. So obviously, it's a very difficult task without proper knowledge or information. Next is crime analysts also need to have knowledge of police operations. The problem is when I speak with my colleagues who are from the IT department, or they seem to think that only data analysts or anything who a person with statistics, knowledge of statistics and data analysis can make it easy to do crime analysis or even predictive policing or predictive analytics. But it's not so easy. You need to know theories of crimes, you need to know about crime situations, you need to have a deeper understanding about crime, about police administration. Unless until that crime analyst does not have knowledge about this, it's not going to be easy for him to analyze. Next is law enforcement agencies need to make sure they have latest software systems, updated knowledge base, with the evolving nature of crime. And many developing countries lack in this, because in US and all, they have very sophisticated ComStat, CrimeStat, Predpol, such softwares are there. But in developing countries, these analytical capabilities and softwares and ITs need to be upgraded with passage of time. The biggest challenge is that the communication between analysts and officers need to be there. In many cases, officers feel that these crime analysts are outsiders and they do not want to consult them, or they do not want to get in loop with them. But if unless until there is a good communication between the officers and the analysts, solutions will not be able to come up. Then obviously there needs to be a particular guidelines regarding decision making, that whether the decision or whether the suggestion of the crime analyst should be taken seriously, whether the police officer is to actually going to make the action according to the suggestions given by the crime analyst. Everything should be there. There should be SOPs, there should be guidelines regarding that. Now I move on to the last step, which is criminal response. The criminal response, as I told you, that criminals will not keep quiet. They will also start making changes according to the interventions by the police. So they are going to change their location, they're going to change their time zones. So that's known as displacement. So with that, even their modus operandi may change. So the entire process of data collection, data analysis has to be again done. But that is not a wastage of time. Obviously it will help you to get more information, and ultimately there will be reduction in the entire area. So this is an image of how predicting crime hotspots by using and analyzing data, by making predictive maps. It can actually reduce the crime by focusing on those crime hotspots. And by predicting offenders also, we can reduce crime. In that, algorithms have to be used, network analysis, especially now with social media and all that. We can do social media analysis also and find out the offenders or victims. So there are certain challenges regarding predictive policing. Obviously, in country like ours, also there are more challenges as compared to other countries, because in regarding the use of predictive policing, the first challenge is the challenge in the policy. Obviously, there can be a lot of misuse if the integrity of the police officers are not good. So if it is not up to the mark, there can be a lot of, already there are certain misuse. For example, a shameful case happened in a state in our India during the lockdown, where a father and a son duo were actually beaten up in custody, and they were even asked to wipe the blood in their lockup, and they died, and it became a huge uproar, and it was in the media and all that. So there is always a possibility of misuse of predictive policing systems, which can lead to groundless arrests and interventions without a suitable cause. So that can also be a thing. The next challenge is that privacy. Obviously, this is a huge concern in India, where Aadhaar card is a mandatory and things are happening. A lot of people are concerned about their privacy, about their information coming out in the open. So like recently in one state there was a study was done, and they said that those people who watch a lot of porn are more likely to commit sexual offenses. And this the police now have started actually collecting data about which people are watching a lot of porn and all that. So many people were concerned about their privacy, about the use of internet and all that. So this was also there. Then the next thing is amplification. Sometimes certain informations can be amplified. A small pattern can actually result. For example, um, there is a saying there is a saying that law is like a web, or where only the smaller insects are caught and the larger insects break through. So it may be a discriminated thing if we say that by just by looking into the data that only poor people are committing crimes, or people from the slum areas are committing crimes, or particular community persons are committing crimes. For example, in US, there was a huge uproar like Black Lives Matter, because they were discriminating against the blacks. So it may so happen that certainly certain data will only amplify this thing, and it may result in more inequity. Then predictive policing algorithms are inscrutable to the courts. Sometimes the judges, not sometimes, most of the times, they are not able to comprehend what the police is trying to say or what the lawyers are trying to say by looking into the data. So we need to also make sure that even judges are trained in such kind of technology and data. The second part is about technology, data ideology. When predictive policing involves over reliance on data, it will ignore a lot of other factors. I guess recently, if you just over rely on technology, it will lead to wrong consequences. I just read a news yesterday that one Indonesian groom actually landed somewhere else by just by using the GPS data. He landed somewhere else in someone else's marriage. There was engagement happening, and he landed somewhere else in the same vicinity. So if you just rely on the data on only on technology, and you don't rely on other human factors, it will be a disaster. So data ideology is there. Then sometimes predictive models are very complex and they may not be understood by the police. So it has to be simplified. Predictive modelings have to be simplified if it is to be used by police officers. Second is security of data. Who the responsibility has to be taken once the data is analyzed. Who is going to keep that data secure? How is it going to be kept secure so that it does not fall in the wrong hands like terrorists and all, and may be misused by those people? And whenever data is being captured and stored, it has to be done in a very proper manner, which can be accessed in a easy or efficient manner. As I already again told you, over reliance in technology. There is a myth that technology will help you to solve everything. No, the police people are the ones who are going to be the decision makers. So they are the ones who are going to take the responsibility and take action. So this is there. And obviously, if that data falls into wrong hands, there can be a huge increase in cyber crimes. So these data have to be protected from cyber attacks. So they need to be protected from hacking and other crimes. So how much time is left? Okay, I'll just wrap up by
No,
this.
you can continue. We have 15 minutes
Okay,
more.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just continue.
Okay.
So there have been certain kinds of predictive policing. We would not call it a very sophisticated kind of predictive policing as compared to the developed countries, but somehow the baby steps have been taken. The Delhi police have started with a new software called CMAPS, which is Crime Mapping Analytics and Predictive System. So it has actually used the data from 100. Like in US, we have 911, where people call 911 if they have any problems or anything to report. So we have 100. So they use that kind of data along with the space research organization satellite imageries, and they are able to spatially locate the calls from where these calls are coming, and they can actually use that kind of data. Then we have Jharkhand police, where they are using this kind of they are taking the help of national informatics centers in e-governance, and in that e-governance even the state police has been included. They're using different kinds of data mining softwares and all that to find out. In Maharashtra police, they have come with MHCRT, And this is a good initiative where they are using computer emergency response teams. And just out here, they are actually using social media. They are keeping a surveillance on social media because this is a huge problem where many people are spreading rumors, especially regarding COVID, regarding terrorism. So they are keeping a tap on that social media information to find out who are those people, to spot those people who are trying to create such rumors and fuel unrest. Then this is a very important organization in India, National Crime Reports Bureau, which maintains a lot of data, and they come up with a report, Crime in India also. So they have collaborated with the Hyderabad-based Advanced Data Research Institute, and they are trying to predict those geographical areas where crime is most likely to take place. And they have suggested police about the patrolling, deployment of resources and surveillances so that offenses do not take in future. Hyderabad police also have entered into an MOU with Synchrony Financial Services for installation of community closed circuit televisions across the city, and they have come up with IP-based outdoor security surveillance cameras, automatic number plate recognition system, video analytics, mobile surveillance system, command and control centers, and they are actually able to uh, analyze the CCTV footages and empower their police officers. Kolkata police similarly have again started using data arrived from Google Maps, and they have connected those Google Maps. They are collecting data at traffic signals and traffic intersections, and they are using Wi-Fi to find out those places, those areas. Then now just let me move to way forward. What we can do, obviously, predictive policing is a game-changing concept, and it is going to be there. Whether you accept it or not, it will be there. So while it is predictive in future, just crunching of data involves a huge effort. So obviously it's a proactive approach which needs to be taken by the police, and even the police officers need to understand the data and goal of the analysis. They may not be able to analyze the data, but they should be able to interpret what is being analyzed by the crime analyst. And it is very important that these users, they are able to they are able to comprehend what is happening. Okay, and these agencies are required to work in close tandem with those crime analysts and all that. So going forward, these police administrators must deal with the proper scope of data collection, retention, storage, security of that data, and so that it is used to enhance public safety and not misused by other things, because those data contains a lot of data: crime data, FIR data, personal data, social data, associational data, locational data. So all of these have to be collected in a proper manner, because these are the center of predictive policing. Data is the most important thing in predictive policing, so all of these needs to be handled properly. So with the advent of technology, police officers have to resort to find suspicious data by just looking at the digital trail, and it's going to be a very useful kind of policing. As you can see in this picture, through video surveillance and also surveillance of social media, a lot of things can be prevented, like thefts, crimes, and both other departments, including law enforcement, emergency and disaster management, they can use this data to. Obviously, there are certain concerns. As I already told you, privacy is also a concern. Discrimination against certain communities, like the Black Lives Matter, where one particular community was thought to be discriminated. So all these things can be a problematic thing. So I will just move on to them. So as I told you, predictive policing is not like a crystal ball where you just look into and predict where crimes are going to happen. You need to understand the system. You need to understand where, when, and who of crimes. You need to understand the specific problems of criminal activities, and then only successful predictive analysis or predictive policing can be done. So these are some of my sources, and so I conclude here. So what do you say in Indonesia? Terima kasih. Okay, so now I'm open to questions. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Swikar Lama. Come on, I give applause from here, and I'm sure every participant will give applause to you for such a nice and great presentation and very interesting. And after hear that presentation, it makes me eagerly want to conduct some research in India, especially in Hyderabad, just like you said before. Yeah, but of course, as soon as possible, after the situation, pandemic COVID-19, all around the world is under control. And I'm sure if is under control, you will be eagerly to come in Surabaya, of course. Many question directly on my WhatsApp message, but I will write about a few questions. For example, the first question is about the acronym. Before I read the question, it is interesting for me, smart policing. Just like Dr. Swikar say, S for strict but sensitive, M modern and mobile, A for alert and accountable, R for reliable and responsive, and the last is T, techno-savvy and trained. Because UNER is acronym Universitas Erlangga, acronym Universitas Erlangga is UNER, because we have a motto, Smart UNER, because we have a smart UNER. Smart is S for smart education for millennial people, and for meaningful research and community service, A for acceleration, innovation, and enterprising. R is same like the smart policing, responsive and lean management. T for tap up tangible and intangible resources utilization. That's our acronym in UNER on SMART. But in the SMART policy, so the SMART acronym is not only applicable in academic environment, but also in the police environment, of course. So the first question I will read to you about the T, the acronym T, techno-savvy and trained. Just like we know, the technology is expensive. There is no cheap technology. The more expensive, the more reliable technology itself. About the techno-savvy and trained, if the police using the technology as a friend to enhancing the effort, how the application that in other words, we must using latest technology. We must using technology in every aspect in the police activity, or we just using the third party who have enhancing technology to become the partner of the police. How about the techno-savvy and train itself? Perhaps you can give us some enlightenment about the techno-savvy. Thank you. That's the first question, Professor.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, there are two models in most of the developed countries. The major model is that they take the use of third-party agencies, because to expect many of these police officers to actually learn data analytics and crime analysis, it's going to take time. It can be done. It can be trained. This can be done, that the training may be provided in police academies and all. But then you cannot expect everyone to be very tech savvy. We have to focus to a certain section of those police officers also, who are good in data, who are good in technical abilities and all that. But the problem in developing countries is that we are still skeptical about giving those data to the third party agencies, because there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of question about integrity. So yeah, this remains a big challenge for developing countries, because in US and all, most of the law enforcement agencies, they are using the third party to do the data analysis and all that.
Okay, in the modern nation, we already know some kind, just like we call a military contractor. About the technology, still related to the technology. In the police activity, it is possible to using some kind of military contractor to enhancing the technology, gadget technology, infrastructure in the police environment. What do you have some kind of criteria of the military contractor who already will make possible to become our partner in the police environment activity? Perhaps you can explain in India, the experience in India, this sharing experience. Thank you.
I did not get the last word. What did you say? The last?
Yeah. Okay. Can you give example the sharing experience in India using the military contractor, some kind of that. If there is there is condition like that exists in India.
In military, I'm not aware of military, but right now a lot of intelligence and agencies are coming together, and they have come with NAT grade and all, because the what was actually analyzed was when the Mumbai attacks happened in India. Although there was intelligence, it was not that there was total intelligence failure. A lot of information was being collected by different agencies, but though that information was not shared among those agencies. So now the government is coming with NAT grade and all these things. And to answer the previous question also, my suggestion would be that in US and all, they have also come up with special positions called crime analysts. So they're including people who are good in data analysis, criminology and all that. So special posts can be created instead of relying on the third party or expecting the police officers to learn all this in the police academies. We can have special posts of crime analysts or data analysts to actually help the police in this thing.
Okay, thank you. The second question, it is still directed to the smart policy in the acronym S, the strict but sensitive. Sometimes we know a police officer when doing their task is sometimes must be strict, but sometimes when they do their task, it will directly make a conflict. Sometimes people tend to make a conflict. There is an abuse of human rights. In the meaning, the strict and the abuse of human rights, can you give a differentiation about that situation?
Okay. So yeah, now this actually smart, but the strict but sensitive thing comes into play, especially into community policing. When policing comes into picture, the police have to be sensitive while dealing with community. In certain states in India, like Kerala or Tamil Nadu, there is a concept called Friends of Policing, where the police officers visit the homes of those people. They play sports with young people and all that. So it is there. So it depends upon situation. Like when lockdown happened, many of these laborers, they were facing problems going to their homes, and the police helped a lot. They in fact provided food to some of these laborers. And also, like there were in certain areas when pregnant ladies were not able to go to the hospital because of the lockdown, the police actually helped them to take them to the hospitals. So we are not saying that they need to be sensitive with criminals, but on one hand, they also need to think that all the public or everyone is not a criminal. And especially, as I gave you an example in the rape case where the police officer asked the woman, with whom did you enjoy the most? So such things should be stopped. The police should become sensitive to the victims. They should understand victim psychology, especially dealing with children in conflict with law, juvenile delinquents. They need to understand child psychology, like what can affect the child if they behave in a certain manner. It might affect the child for a lifetime. So they need to be sensitive in that sense. For example, when I was attending a conference in Cambridge University, they were explaining that even dentists are sensitized whenever they are asking the person, the woman, to open her mouth. They are sensitized to ask her in certain manner, because certain women may have been orally raped. They might be a victim of rape, especially with a victim of rape. And I was wondering, even criminal justice agencies, professionals are not trained in our country. Out there, even dentists and other professionals are sensitized about the victim psychology. So that is where sensitivity comes into picture.
Okay, the next question in the column chat, the first is, in India, what is the system of arrest investigation of the police? Just like they using a presumption of innocence, just like you said before, every public is innocent. The police must think of that. But sometimes the law enforcement, especially in the era of the pandemic COVID-19, the application of health protocol, sometimes the police using force to make sure the people wearing masks. Now, how about that situation? Can you explain? Because many participants here watching the video when the police using with the rattan hit the people who do not wearing masks, especially when the nation applied the policy of lockdown and the people see going outside outside their home to walk away, and the police come with the rattan, run chase them. what do you think about that, and how about the application, especially on the era COVID-19? Thank you.
Yeah, so the similar kind of situation was happening in India. We had videos where the police were using lathis and the sticks to beat those people who were not following social distancing or were coming out of their homes in the lockdown. And but some of the police officers came up with certain creative ideas. They made those not perpetrators, those people who were not listening to such kind of rules. They were asking them to catch their airs and sit and up and down and taking videos and putting it on the social media to embarrass them.
Yeah.
So yes, regarding arrest, in India we have different categories of, maybe that's the same thing in Indonesia, where we have cognizable and non-cognizable crimes, and then the serious kind of crimes. So if there is circumstantial evidence or there's a preliminary evidence that this person might be offender, so they are kept in the police custody and then they are taken into the just judicial custody. But yes, there is presumption of innocence until proved guilty beyond reasonable doubt. So the police also need to be careful that they do not uh, they are not very strict with those people unless until they are proved that these people are actually guilty.
Okay, especially right now using the social media. So every action of the police sometimes recorded to the people and they sharing in the internet. But sometimes the people watching that video, they do not know the police is hit the burglar, the police hit the criminal. But what the people say, the police hit someone who paying the tax, just like that. To make clear about that, there is some case like that. Perhaps I think if the India police force facing some kind of the situation, what they do to clearing the name and the other thing, because it is in example in Indonesia there is some kind of situation when the people recorded when the police have an action and the police hit the burglar and they said the police doing harassment to the people. So the misjudgment about the people. How we make the clarity of the situation in India, of course. Perhaps you can give us some enlightenment.
Okay. So yeah, the same thing is there. We have a very negative portrayal about the police in India also, especially because through social media and also through the mainstream media, just to increase their TRPs, they are showing certain negative aspects about the police and all that. So well, we can't actually control the entire media, but somehow now certain efforts are being made to maintain cordial relationships with the mainstream media, because nothing, I think we can't do much about social media because the youngsters and all, everybody will post according to things, but still we can create awareness in colleges and other places, but especially the mainstream media. Now there are public relations cells within the police organizations which maintain cordial relations with the media, and they also highlight the problems and also the positive steps taken by the police, so that not everything negative, only negative things go out in the media. So PR relations cells should be there in every law enforcement agency, every small police station. So only that can help to a certain extent, but unless we don't change the mindset or attitude of the people also, this will continue to persist, because now social media is like out of control, and unless until the entire public is made aware about the problems and challenges, because in India also we see that policemen are facing so much of problems. They have to work 24 into 7. They miss out on festivals. They can't even go to their homes, especially in the corona situation. They were not able to even meet their own children. They had to eat outside their homes so that their children do not get infected and all. So we must also look into the problems which are being faced by the police, not just criticizing them or saying that these people are corrupt or these people are violent towards other people and all that.
Okay, just like I remember in my childhood, I like to watching the India movies, especially playing by the senior actor Amitabh Bachchan. When he played the role of Inspector Vijay. That's the
Yes.
great police. Yeah, the representation of the great police in India police force, I think. So
Yes,
yeah,
right
I
now
like.
certain movies also have come in the similar manner, like Singham and all that, where they have shown like a super cop who deal
Yeah,
with in a very strict manner with the criminals and all that. So yes.
yeah,
On one hand, in those movies, people appreciate the police, but when it comes to real police, if the police use some kind of a bit of beating, or as you told, they are very critical about the police. So that is.
Yes, just like the situation about the reality is not same just like a fiction, but the fiction give us some encouragement about the we will become like that. Just like in my childhood, when I see the Inspector Vijay, I have inspiration in my childhood. I want to become a police officer. So that's the childhood dream. So the reality, I'm not become a police officer, but the head of magister police science study. There is a different big police officer, but a little friction about the police. Yeah, just like sharing my little experience. Okay. Uh, the next question, perhaps this is the last question because we already spent next hour about the alert and accountable, still about the smart policy. There is a question in India. They asking about the India. In India, there is a possibility when the police force using a private investigator as their partner. There is some kind of method like that when the police force. I don't know, but the from the question already chat in me, perhaps the participant who question of that too many watching, too many reading the novel of Sherlock Holmes, perhaps. So when the police force using the private investigator or make the private investigator as their partner, there is a possibility to that. Is that some kind of to the private investigator when work with the police, is a sign of the police cannot do the task maximally. Is that kind of possibility in India when the police using the private investigator? Perhaps you can give us some experience.
Okay. So, well, I'm not aware about the police using private investigators out here in India, because if even if they do so, as you told, that this may portray a picture that the police is not efficient. So this is not out in the open. We never get to see in the media or the news that the police has used private investigators. So because that might portray that the police is inefficient. So I am not aware of such use of private investigators. But let me give you an example. One of our students, past students, actually started a private detective agency, and it's known as, I think it's criminal investigation agency or something. And one victim was not satisfied with the investigation done by the police in that particular case. So he hired this investigator. Initially, the police was also skeptical, and the defense lawyer was also skeptical about this. But by looking into this thing, the entire evidence, the court found that it was very strong evidence, and they actually gave a decision that the evidence which was collected by the investigation, by the investigating agency, the private investigation agency or detective agency, should be included as evidence in the case. So now slowly the investigation agencies, the private investigation agencies or detective agencies, they are getting recognition and they're getting respect. Earlier they were like considered only for matrimonial cases, like if the wife is cheating, or if it's like before the marriage, if so, that was only very smaller petty cases. Now slowly they are coming into the picture, and especially the role of criminologists, the role of other experts is being recognized by the courts and other agencies slowly. But it will take a lot of time for it to come with par with the developed nations. Like,
Okay, just like I searching in internet, especially in Africa, in the Kenya, the nation of Kenya, uh, you can see in internet Jane Mungo. Jane Mungo is a famous private investigator in Kenya because they not only solving the case wife cheating or child missing, just like that, but sometimes she helped the people solving the murder case. That's the situation in the Kenya. Perhaps you can search. We can search in internet the name Jane Mugo. Jane Mugo, just like that. Okay. Thank you for your participation. Finally, we already have 1 hour with Professor Dr. Swikar Lama. Many knowledge, many experience I get today, and I'm sure many knowledge will gain in the participant itself. So, Professor, thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for your attendance in this forum. Thank you for the sharing of the knowledge. Yeah, we will like to invite you in Surabaya after the pandemic COVID-19 is over. So I hope you will
Kasih.
be eagerly come to here, of course, after the pandemic is over. Because if your committee is agree when you become our adjunct professor, it is been already become our dignity for us, our pride for us to make you as our young professor. So finally, from the deepest of my heart, I do apologize for my mistake in hosting this public lecture. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And Professor, before I ended this session, perhaps for the administrative matter, our staff for the International Affairs Unit will send you some email. We'll send you some emails for the administrative matter. So we hope you can giving us knowledge, giving us lecture in the another session. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your attendance, and selamat siang. Nah, selamat siang.
Selamat siang.
Ya, selamat
Terima
siang.
kasih.
Terima
Terima
kasih.
kasih.
What's in
Thank you.
India? In India is what kind of terima kasih? What I said in India.
Dhanyavad.
Tanyawan.
Dhanyavad.
Tanyawan. Ya, Tanyawan. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank
See
you
you
so
in
much.
another session.
Thank you all the participants. Thank you,
Yes.
Rosemary. Okay.
Thank you.